We're going to get started. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to be sharing our Family Forward North Carolina initiative and how your community and state can create a family forward community. So to start us off, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Finaldi, the Community Engagement Leader at the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation, of which the Family Forward Initiative is part of. And also I'm here with my colleague, Emily Swartzlander, who is the president of EBS Strategies. And this really has been the brainchild of Emily since the beginning. So I'm glad to continue to be working with her. Today, we will review our initiative so you can hear a little bit about what we've been up to and what our campaign looks like. We'll also be looking at it from how we frame our story because our audience is employers. We'll tell you more about how to license our playbook. We'll look at some other opportunities for consultation. What is the investment? And we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end of the program. Feel free to start putting your questions in the chat and we'll be monitoring them and take them up. So the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation is having its 10-year anniversary this year. And our focus is on ensuring that children have the best start for academic success. And we do convening of organizations across the state to look at what is the gap between early childhood and kindergarten, and how do we address those gaps through convening organizations that have the ability to make change. We have several strategies that we are working on to look at child well-being, and one of them is about how employers can contribute. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everyone. We are so excited to be talking with you today. I'm going to just talk a little bit in general about what Family Forward NC is and how we frame our message. We've been working with over 8,500 employers in North Carolina over the past 5 years. And so we've learned a lot of lessons about speaking to employers and really inspiring and engaging them. So I'll just walk you through some of what we've learned in terms of how we frame our message, and then I'll kick it back over to Lisa. So Family Forward NC is really, as you know, working directly with employers to inspire them to change within their own workplaces. And we do that in a number of ways, by offering research, by offering resources, and by really working on an industry by industry and with organizations of all different sizes to show both the business case and also the child and family case for family forward workplace practices. We know that policy change is one of the ways that you can ensure that families and children have what they need. And we also know that in an environment where most families have all parents and caregivers working, that working with employers is also an important piece of the puzzle. And so that's what we do with Family Forward. We like to say that Family Forward is business smart, family friendly, and future ready. And by that, we mean digging into each one of the research-backed ways that we know that each of these family-friendly practices can support businesses, families, and children. And so we talk a lot about recruiting and retaining talent, increasing productivity, encouraging workforce participation on the business side of things. But then we also talk about, what's happening with families right now, and in particular, when it comes to childcare and things like paid leave, how these practices can support working families. And then we also really dig into their early childhood case and talk about how having support, parents and caregivers having support right now will impact children both now and down the line. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. There we go. This is a little bit of our theory of change. By educating and engaging employers, we are propelling action that will eventually create happier, healthier children and families, a strong workforce, and a durable economy, both here in North Carolina and increasingly as other states work with Family Forward across the country. I mentioned you'll hear us say engage and inspire a lot because that's really what we're trying to do. And we do that in a number of different ways. We've got the Guide to Family Forward Workplaces, which is online and that we keep pretty continually updating. That was informed by an advisory council of employers and employees across the state. We did a lot of research up front to take a look at what the appetite was, what was already available in North Carolina, and what opinions and attitudes were around family-friendly practices. And so all of that really informed the guide, along with national research around best practices and kind of what the health outcomes are, and really looking at all of these practices from a well-rounded standpoint. We publish a number of case studies each year. Increasingly, those are video case studies, but also written case studies. You can find them on our website. We have found that what we call peer-to-peer learning is very, very successful when it comes to family forward. That in particular, when you're looking at industries like, say, hospitality, or and a subset of that, like restaurants or manufacturing, industries that have not traditionally been as family friendly, that seeing organizations that are able to incorporate those practices is really powerful. We've directly reached out to more than 8,500 employers. During COVID, we put together a number of resources that were actually geared toward the two industries I just mentioned, hospitality and manufacturing. And those resources were shared with over 190,000 employers. And we are increasingly getting involved with economic development professionals, both across the state and at the state level through Department of Commerce. And so Family Forward NC it has been included in the economic development plan for the state. You can see the cover here, because we know that these employers allowing access to family-friendly practices impacts workforce participation, particularly among women, but really among all parents and caregivers. It's around one in five here in North Carolina who've made a decision about being in the workforce based solely on childcare issues. And that's not even factoring in any of the other practices that we talk about. And so it really is an economic issue. And we've done a lot of work with economic development professionals and with Department of Commerce to make sure that the family forward message and everything that we are working toward is embedded in the economic development work that's happening across the state. So I'm not going to go slide by slide for the next couple of slides, because what I'm really doing is kind of showing again how we frame our message to employers, to economic development professionals, to business chambers and associations when we speak with them. And one of the first things we do, and what we really like to ground our work in, is brain development, is that early childhood case, because of course that's what the Early Childhood Foundation focuses on, is really getting everything right for children by the time that they're reaching about fourth grade. And so that matters here, because we know that when families are supportive and supported, that therefore child outcomes are better. And so we really walk folks through that brain development and how employers play a role in helping to unleash potential in children across the state. We take a look at the neuroscience of it and how experiences are really built into a child's body and shape brain architecture, how those neural connections are formed, and how that impacts children down the line. We look at, of course, Professor Heckman's 13% ROI, that if you invest in early childhood programs, you are receiving about a 13% ROI. And we talk about the importance of his work and the importance of the third grade reading scores, which we dig into a little bit with employers as well. You can see, for those of you in other states, North Carolina's numbers are reflective of what's happening across the country. We always disaggregate the data when we can, because we're trying to show that equity is a core part of our work, and we use the data to show why. And then we really get into the family case and what's happening for families across the country. We look at childcare and what childcare costs in North Carolina and across the country. In our state, it's about a third of income just on childcare alone. I imagine that's similar in other states represented here today. We look at access to paid leave. Also, what's happening in North Carolina is similar to what's happening in other states. And then because we have a focus on really reaching hourly workers and low-wage workers, we talk a lot about things like work schedule and how that also impacts childcare, therefore impacts family and child outcomes. And I will say what we've seen a lot is that employers, they know that they're having trouble hiring. They know that increasingly, they know that things like childcare need help and that the system needs help. And really connecting that early childhood piece and really taking a look at that data has been powerful for us to be able to show employers just that one missing link between here's what's happening out there and here's how you can help. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa, who's going to talk specifically about the copyright and licensing work that we do.
Thanks, Emily. Since Emily and I started this work, we've been contacted by a lot of folks around the country about it. And so we thought, let's look at how we can support other organizations who want to start a family forward workplace initiative. So, we've done the research. I'll tell you a little bit more about that on detail, but Emily mentioned how we looked at employers and employees to understand culture and needs, wants, what's happening currently in the workplace in order to really think about informing our strategy. Our information is credible and accessible to our audience, especially. And really, when we started this idea of looking at this through the lens of child well-being was a new idea. It is becoming more popular for sure. As we look to especially public policy as it relates to these policies and practices. So down below, I just put up a screenshot of what the guide looks like on the website. There is also a downloadable guide, but here's the types of policies that we have. And each one of them defines the policy. It shows the benefits to a business, also to the employer and to children. It looks at the range of practice, the best practices. We show case studies for each one of them and also a sample policy for every one of these. And as Emily mentioned, we do update it, and our most recent update included an employee assistance program because we know that we have an increase of mental health concerns in our country. And also the family sustaining wage has been added as well. So here's why you came. You wanted to understand more about what's in our playbook and what are the materials that can be licensed. We've created a fact sheet. We find that the fact sheet is very helpful after you have an initial conversation with an employer. Maybe they're the HR director or someone in a small business who is overseeing HR, even though that's not necessarily their expertise. And so they're able to provide that information. It's brief and succinct and helpful to the CEO or folks in leadership positions. A big part of the package is really a detailed understanding of our, excuse me, of our strategy, including the theory of change that Emily mentioned in greater detail. We started by looking at employers and employees. What is the state of a workplace in North Carolina? What are people's attitudes and norms around these issues? And so using a professional pollster, we surveyed 300 employees and interviewed 300 employers to really inform our strategy. And so we have created a template with those questions, and both is for the survey and interview. And also, as I mentioned, the guide, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, how to use the guide and the template for successfully creating case studies that Emily mentioned. So we've taken the survey and the interviews, and we've really streamlined the survey and the questions so that they would be easy for you to adapt to online as needed if you prefer to not do 300 or however many phone interviews you're looking towards. Obviously, you can hire a professional pollster and it's ready to go, but also it can be adaptable for organizations to do it themselves. We talked about the case studies. It's really about proving the benefit, as Emily mentioned, peer-to-peer. We think it inspires change, especially when we do case studies around unexpected benefits offered by a company that we wouldn't normally think about being able to offer that. So this memo really details how to prepare a case study in order to show success in an employer. One of the businesses that we covered was East Cut Sandwich Bar. They were able to start to offer some parental leave and also some health insurance benefits. And you could read more about them on our website. And also, this is a larger group. It's a specialty insurance organization. They have very generous benefits, and they have no problem with recruiting or retaining workers, especially in the tight labor market that we're in right now. Also, I will say that some of these employers, I'll just go back for a second. Some of these employers really are champions for the work, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that towards the end of the program. But we're able to create I guess, a stable of employers who want to tell their stories and to talk about the value of these family-friendly workplace policies. So I thought I would take a minute and just show you what other licensees across the country are doing and how diverse, how they've been able to use the toolkit. So this is a group in Minnesota who really started by working with parents about what brain building is and what are the resources and the things you can do with your children. And it's further developed now into how businesses, as they say, good for business, good for brains, has developed. And this is a coalition of organizations across Minnesota. We also see Steamboat Springs Chamber of Commerce in Colorado. They are using this to engage their membership and also bring in new members to talk about, here's the kind of information that we're providing our members about how to strengthen your business. An economic development organization in Missoula, looking at it not only as existing businesses, but also in their recruitment. Nicole, who we worked with on this preparation of her initiative, she just gave us some information to show that it was very quick and easy to launch the initiative when she was able to make it her own, but have the files in order to create a guide, for example, for their work. This is a new licensee in Kansas. It's the Breastfeeding Coalition. They are funded by the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund, which is a government organization that provides funding to organizations doing a wide range of work around children's health and safety. As you can see, they've been aggressive in getting rolling. They're mailing the guide out. They have a postcard campaign, a great media campaign, and they've already published an op-ed in the Kansas Reflector about this as they kick off their work. But remembering that they really started from a breastfeeding frame, and they're now expanding into many other benefits that employers can provide. And then finally, we'll look at the Children's Movement of Florida. This is a statewide organization that's working on a wealth of policies for young children, including a legislative campaign as well. They also have an initiative before we work with them on Family Forward called Bosses for Babies. And initially they were giving awards and just creating and showing champions for family-friendly workplaces. But now they're taking it to the next level where they can really promote intensely these practices. They had already been doing work. As you can see, they had already surveyed parents to provide that information to employers about what they want. And I am going to ask Crystal to show this video of the executive director of the Children's Initiative in Florida.
The Children's Movement of Florida has created a guide to promote family-friendly workplaces. It's called Bosses for Babies. It's a statewide initiative that promotes participation from the business community that will contribute to getting children ready for kindergarten. According to the Children's Movement of Florida, only 49% of kids are actually ready for kindergarten when they start. President and CEO of the Children's Movement of Florida, Madeline Thacker, says family-friendly practices are essential to turning this problem around. She says there are numerous things that workplaces can do to help support this initiative.
That is flexibility and paid time off or support with childcare, other accommodations like lactation support, and then health benefits or flexible spending accounts.
On June 20th, they're actually having a lunch for business leaders to gather and celebrate the launch of their guide, and will hold discussions on how to push this movement even further.
Okay, so let's just get back to the program. Just a few more slides before we open it up to questions. So here's what the package looks like. As I mentioned already, the fact sheet, the strategy, a detailed theory of change, everything you would need for surveys and interviews, the guide, how to use the guide, and the template for the case studies. The guide is also available on our website if you'd like to download it. It's on the home page. We'll give you a look in a PDF format about what's in it. It is available to you not only in a PDF format, but we provide the design format with all the stock photos to make it simple for you to make it your own in preparation for publishing. We also have an opportunity for some strategy and implementation of the Family Forward initiative in your community, if that's helpful to you. And then finally, I did mention how we're creating champions for the work. And this is Cecilia Thompson as part of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. It's a specific program called Action Greensboro to really bring millennials into the chamber and look differently about what work is in Greensboro. And so as a result of our work together, she's not only opening doors, but also the chamber has changed their own workplace policies to include a parental leave policy. So with that, I think that we are going to